Howdy, friends, and welcome to a special bonus episode of the Seeds and Weeds podcast. You know, our good friends at Hobby Farm Magazine had a podcast for a number of years called Growing Good, and I was lucky enough to be a guest on the show back in 2022, which was just around the time that we were kicking off pre-sales for my book, The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils. Unfortunately, Hobby Farms has decided to discontinue their podcast, but that's good news for us because that means that we have the opportunity to showcase an encore episode of Growing Good right here on the show. I'm going to be sitting down with the Growing Good host, Lisa Munniksma, and we're going to be talking about the early days of Small House Farm, my book, Seed and Nut Oils, seed libraries, and some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this encore episode of Growing Good.
Hey y'all, you are listening to Hobby Farms Presents Growing Good. It's a podcast about farmers, about hobby farmers, small-scale farmers, and sustainable farmers. And more than that, it's about the important work that these folks are doing for themselves, their families, and their communities on and off the farm. I'm Lisa Munniksma. I'm a hobby farmer in Kentucky, also a writer and food systems advocate, and your host for Hobby Farms Presents Growing Good. I love sharing stories, learning new ways of doing things, and connecting people through food and farming. It is my hope that we will do all of that together here. Today on Hobby Farms Presents Growing Good, you are getting to hear from Bevin Cohen. You might recognize this name if you're a Hobby Farms Magazine or hobbyfarms.com reader, as Bevin has written and made videos about everything from DIY herbal remedies to readying your homestead for winter, and even how to make a rain barrel irrigation system. Bevin also leads workshops, and he has written 4 books, including Saving Our Seeds, The Artisan Herbalist, and The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils, which we'll hear about today. At the small farm in Michigan, Bevin and his family grow vegetables and keep small livestock, as well as cultivate and offer seeds and herbal products. Hello, Bevin.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Thank you for being here. I am delighted to get to talk with you about all of these interesting things that you're involved in. Tell us about what you're doing at Small House Farm.
Well, you know, we actually do a lot at Small House Farm. It's a pretty busy endeavor that we've got going on here. Now, in the wintertime, I guess it's sort of our off season. Our season of rest, but there's still so much action going on between splitting wood, packaging seed orders. I do a lot of writing in the wintertime. It keeps us quite busy. You know, when people hear the name Small House Farm, inevitably they think that I live in a tiny house, which is not the case by any means. I suppose it's a small house by typical American standards, but it's a regular sized home. Small house is more about our philosophy, our way of life here. We believe in slow, simple, intentional living. And we represent that through the brand Small House Farm. We're situated on probably just under 3.5 acres here. Now that's the entire property. So that's where the house is, the barn, the woods, the growing area, everything. So it's small, I suppose, in that way too. And we're always trying to find some more sunshine to grow in. So we have to be clever and creative in the things that we choose to grow and do here at Small House to make the most of the little bit of slice of heaven that we got here.
Yeah. How long have you been farming?
We have been here at Small House Farm since 2014. So about 7 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you get started?
Small. My wife and I used to live in town in the city down the way, and we had a very different lifestyle. I did marketing for an insurance company, and my wife managed a department at the local university. And we found that fast-paced style of life was not really well suited to what we wanted to be doing with our time. So we kind of took a leap of faith one day and left those jobs and bought this property out in the country and moved out here with really very little plan for what we were going to do next. So when I say leap of faith, I mean that to the definition of those words. We just believed that it was the right thing to do and all the pieces would fall in place if we allowed them to. And really, that's become the philosophy of what we do here now at Small House Farm. I have found for me, the best thing I could do in my life is just get out of my own way and let Mother Nature unfold her mysteries. And it's really, things here have just grown organically from there far better than I ever could have planned them if I would have tried.
That's pretty great. You've been saving seeds and developing plants for a few years now. Can you tell us about the seeds that you're particularly interested in?
It's like asking me to choose my favorite kid, right?
Yeah.
Who's my favorites? Well, every year I kind of have a different obsession of things. One year I completely obsessed with corn, and we spent a couple of seasons really breeding popcorn with my son Elijah. He's 12 this year. He's been an avid helper in the garden since the beginning. Working with family is very important to us, and he loves to get out in the garden and help. So we started a popcorn breeding project a number of years ago. It was super fun. Corn's an easy one to work with. It's easy to cross-pollinate. It's really easy to see the results, the physical results, that the different colors of the kernels and that sort of thing. So it's fun for a kid to do. It's fun for me to do too. Who am I kidding? We had a great time out there doing that. So there was a few years that we were like really into popcorn. We've been in tomatoes a lot lately. That's been the new thing. We've been working on a Florida weave system, which is a trellising system to hold up tomatoes. Mm-hmm. And Elijah's really been into it. We've been going out there and pruning the tomatoes regularly, and all the diversity, the shapes and colors and that sort of thing. Tomatoes are fun to work with. So each year it's something different that we're working with. But I suppose that the criteria for varieties that become those that we steward, we really like to work with seeds that have stories. We really like to work with that history. And heirlooms come with all this history, all this backstory. In a way, the fingerprints of every grower, right, that has ever touched those seeds comes with that, the songs and stories of all these people. So we really like to honor that in our seed saving. So we like to pick varieties that have these great stories, ones that obviously perform well for us, that they're delicious. There's a lot of boxes we got to check to have one that's going to stick around for more than a couple of seasons. But once they do, they become like members of the family.
You all also have an interest in foraging on your farm and making the most of what's available to you. What kind of land is around you for foraging, and what are you finding there?
We're really lucky. Even though our property is only about 3.5 acres, our home is situated on a dead-end dirt road, and it's across the street from 1,100 acres of forest. So we can just spend all day out there just walking the trails and seeing the sights and that sort of thing. So we do a lot of foraging out there. Some of it's a little swampy and wet once you get back in there, but it's mostly hardwood forest. So we do a lot of foraging out there. One thing that's become a family tradition that we do every year is collecting elder. We go out, there's a large patch of elder trees, and we'll go out there to collect berries, is how we started, which if anybody that's listening has collected elderberries, they know you got to battle the birds. The timing's got to be right. There's a lot that goes into elderberry harvest. So we've actually pivoted into elderflower harvest. We collect a lot of elderflowers, which are really enjoyable. You obviously enjoy them in the kitchen. We make fritters with them and eat them. We make medicines out of them, tea, that sort of thing. And it's just become a fun thing. Now, Anakin, who's the youngest, he's 7 now, and he really gets excited every year when we go out to do the elder harvest. It's so much fun. Because those umbels, those flowers they're so big. Yeah. They're as big as his face. So we like to do photo shoots with them, and we just make it a big family event,
Elderflower is really lovely just in water also. And it's supposed to be really good for dehydration if you just stick elderflower in water. I don't know. I just like the way it tastes. It's not like overpowering or anything. And it's just, you don't have to bother with boiling water. You just dunk the elderflower in your glass of water, and it's really lovely.
You're right. It's delicate. It's floral. It is such an enjoyable flavor. Absolutely.
You all, as part of your living simply and small philosophy, you do a lot of preserving too. What kind of things did you put by this year?
Oh my gosh. So I don't know how long the show is. We could go on for quite some time, probably. We do a lot of canning, obviously, canning tomatoes and all that traditional stuff, which is kind of a holdover from my grandmother. My grandmother, one of my earliest memories of her was canning tomatoes. So it's kind of a fun thing. It's a real old heirloom, if you will, family tradition of canning tomatoes that we still carry on today, doing tomatoes. I've really, in the last few years, though, gotten into making hot sauce. That is something I'm obsessed with it. We grow a lot of peppers here, hot and sweet. For seed production mostly, but once you harvest the seeds out of them, you have a lot of fruits left behind. And obviously we can dehydrate them and make spice and that sort of thing, but that's only going to go so far. So I've really gotten into using them to make hot sauce because there's just so many different ways that we can do it. We've tried fermented hot sauces, this and that. This year I had a bumper crop of jalapenos. So I built a a smoker, essentially out of an old grill. I rigged it into a smoker with some pecan chips that I'd gotten, and I made a smoked jalapeno hot sauce. That is probably my crowning achievement of hot sauces. It's the best one I've ever done. So that's something, everybody got that for Christmas presents this year. I was pretty proud of it. But we also do a lot of freezing. It's just a little easier to do. In the heat of summer, when you're bringing in the harvest, running the canner and all that sort of stuff, it gets so warm in the kitchen. So we have started doing some freezing, berries freeze easy, that sort of thing. I've been doing a lot of peppers, actually, like sweet peppers. I'll just freeze them on flat trays and put them in freezer bags to use throughout the winter. And of course, dehydrated things. We've been dehydrating a lot of mushrooms. We grow shiitake mushrooms on logs out here in the woods. Which is a great way to kind of utilize our space. Like I mentioned, sun is a commodity. The sunny real estate around here is few and far between. So we're trying to find things that we can utilize these shady spaces for. And it's perfect mushroom growing situation. So we do a lot of shiitake mushrooms on logs, and mushrooms come in these huge flushes, but they don't keep very well.
Yeah.
They're not going to hold over. So, we do make tinctures and that sorts of things with them, but dehydrating shiitake mushrooms, you can use them throughout the whole winter in your soups. You can make teas with them. There's just so many, great uses for them. So we try to kind of mix up our preservation techniques throughout the harvest season, just so it doesn't get too repetitive. I can't do the same thing over and over again. So when canning gets bored, we'll move on. We'll try, dehydrating something or freezing something, just making sun-dried tomatoes. I could go on forever, Lisa. So
no, it's great. Do you have a commercial kitchen, or is this all for like homestead and sharing situations?
This is all for homestead and sharing situations. All the food and things that we produce here at Small House are just for our own consumption. Years ago, we did have a commercial kitchen. When we got started with Small House as a commercial entity, but we started cold pressing oils. That's where we got started as a commercial endeavor. And it did so well that it scaled up so quickly that we had to move into a commercial kitchen to accommodate the size of the production. But then I again quickly realized that wasn't necessarily what I meant to have happen. So we kind of scaled that back a little bit. And I didn't move out to Small House just so I could be driving to town every day to work in a kitchen. I wanted to stay here at the farm. So, we had to keep scaling down. I'm always reminding myself how important it is to scale down, to stay small, to stay true to who we are and what we believe in, and not get carried away in all that fast-paced capitalism that's happening around us everywhere.
Right. That's a hard thing to keep in mind when you see all the possibilities that are out there.
It's one of my greatest challenges is remembering to stay small. But I think that it's one of those challenges that comes with the greatest rewards. When you're able to find yourself in the position to be able to slow down and to scale back and to whittle away all that unnecessary stuff, you get to the heart of what really matters.
The last time that you and I talked, we both got pretty excited about seed swaps and seed libraries. And even just now listening to you talk about the work that you do with saving seeds and wanting to know their stories and pass them along. This is obviously a passion of yours. I was surprised, though, when we talked to learn that there are more than 100 seed libraries in Michigan. And it turns out you had a part in their formation through the Michigan Seed Library Network. Can you tell us about what seed libraries are and about this network of seed libraries in particular?
Absolutely. Lisa, 100 plus seed libraries in one state is pretty significant, really, if you think about it. Just a month or two ago, we had the Michigan Seed Library Summit, which is a gathering of all the seed librarians. Of course, this year it was virtual, and our keynote speaker was Bill McDormand from the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance. He came and he spoke at our event. And in his speech, he mentioned that nationwide, that there's probably 500 plus seed libraries. And that didn't really sink into my mind until later what that means. If there's 500 plus nationwide and 100 plus just in Michigan alone, that's like 20%. Right. That's heavy, man. It's so cool to see. It'd be my dream if every community had a seed library. It's such an important thing. Now, for those of the folks at home that are listening that are not familiar with the seed library, I'll give you a quick rundown on what it is. A seed library functions very much like a traditional library, but instead of checking out books, you get to go and check out seeds. There's a large selection of different garden seeds, herbs, flowers, vegetables, whatever it may be. And you can check out these seeds and you take them home and you grow them in your gardens and you enjoy that delicious produce. And then at the end of the season, you save some seeds from your garden and you bring them back. Just like you bring your book back after you get done reading it, you bring the seeds back to the library and restock your library with fresh, locally adapted seeds that other people in your community can come and check out. It's pretty awesome stuff. In a way, it's like a living seed bank where folks from the community share their seeds amongst themselves. It works as a hub to bring people together, to share ideas, to share stories, and of course, share those seeds and all the delicious food that we can grow from. It's really, really cool stuff. I think it's some of the most important work that we can do as gardeners, as growers, community activists, wherever we're coming at in this world. The seed library plays such an important part in what we can do to make the world a better place.
How or why maybe do you think Michigan has so many seed libraries? Like, how did all of these little community, nooks pop up?
I've spent a lot of time on the road visiting all these communities to talk to them about seed libraries. In the early spring and in the early fall, I do a lot of educational programming, whether it be virtually or in person, depending on what the situation is. Last year, I probably gave 85 different lectures, not all on seeds, but many of them on the importance of seeds and locally grown food. Through the Michigan Seed Library Network, this organization that we formed, this nonprofit, serves as an umbrella, if you will, over all of these organizations. Each seed library, of course, operates independently, specifically to the needs of their communities or the resources available to them. But as an umbrella, we create a situation where we can share resources. We can discuss our challenges. We can work together to make sure that all of these seed libraries thrive. I've been lucky enough to speak at Michigan library conferences. And that's really how we were able to take things off. The Michigan Library Association conference invited me to speak back in 2016. And it was the most well-attended seminar they had at the entire conference. They said they had to bring in chairs. There were so many people that were interested in this idea. So we were able to really get people turned on to it, plant those seeds, if you will, and help these things get growing.
Are they, this is such a naive question. Are seed libraries often hosted by actual libraries?
They are. And that's not really a naive question. That's an important thing to think about. Many seed libraries are housed within, public libraries, which works out really well, because they're kind of already in the business of that exchange. People come in and check things out. They kind of have that infrastructure in place. But it's not mandatory by any means that a seed library be within a public library. I've seen them hosted by community gardens. I've seen them put on by all sorts of different organizations and groups. I've even seen, and especially it's become so handy now with the pandemic, where sometimes the libraries aren't able to be open or staffed or whatever it may be, where people are setting up little free seed libraries. Yeah. Just like you see the little libraries with books or sometimes with canned foods or whatever it might be. People are setting them up with seeds now. A little structure outside where people can just come and freely exchange seeds. It's real loosey-goosey. There's not a lot of rules. It's all on the honor system. You come, you take some seeds, you bring some seeds back, whatever it may be. But what a beautiful thing it is to see all of these people just sharing with each other. The absolute essence of life, right? These little seeds. It's so cool.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. In pre-pandemic times, you organized several large seed swaps, like the Central Michigan Seed Swap and another at the National Heirloom Expo. But seed swaps don't have to be these huge undertakings. And particularly now when it's hard to get large groups of people together, they could just be as simple as getting together with friends, right? And swapping seeds and sharing stories.
Absolutely. We have organized some large seed swaps. The Central Michigan Seed Swap is the largest one in Michigan. We have 500 plus people in attendance. It's quite a thing that we've been able to do pre-pandemic. And it kind of comes to my nature again of forgetting to scale back, always trying to make things bigger and better. But at the heart of it is just a couple of people getting together to exchange seeds. And that's a beautiful thing that can happen anywhere, anytime, on people's back porches, in community gardens, when we're hanging out with each other, talking about how well our crops did, whatever it might be. Any opportunity that we have amongst friends and community members to share and swap our seeds. That's powerful stuff that we can do. So sure, a big seed swap, that's a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of people, see some new things, get introduced to some new varieties, whatever it might be. Lots of fun on a large scale. But that work that we can do just as individuals, sharing seeds amongst friends, is just as powerful.
I've been sharing seeds with friends here. And this past year, a good friend had her own community garden plot for the first time. And so it was really fun just for me to be able to see things that she grew based on seeds that I gave her. And she went traveling and came back with these heirloom beans. I wish I could remember the name of them right now. So these white beans. And so she gave them to me and they did really well in my garden. And just that individual like exchange between the two of us was really a fun thing to witness. And it's great that now both she and I have more seeds that we want to share with other people. Like it's just sort of like, I don't know, blooms sort of organically. It's the sharing of seeds is just such a beautiful thing.
It's such a beautiful thing. Let me tell you a quick story, Lisa. So one of the very first seeds that I ever saved was a black pole bean known as a Cherokee Trail of Tears, right? It's a pretty common heritage variety connected to a significant moment in history. At the time when these seeds came to me, I had never saved a seed in my life. I had gardened and all this sort of thing, but saving seeds was something that I didn't quite comprehend. And I was at a community garden and the guy that was the caretaker of the garden was explaining to me what heirloom seeds were and all these mystical new ideas. And I wasn't really catching on to it. And he said, you know what? And he pulled some pods down off these bean plants and he put them in my hand, a handful of dried bean pods. And he said, you take these seeds home, Bevin, grow them in your garden, save your seeds and share them with your friends. So I did. I saved them in a little box and I kept them on my dresser all winter and I planted them right outside my bedroom window so I could watch them grow. You know, these things would like sing songs to me in my sleep and the sort of thing. It was such an experience growing these beans. And I saved all the seeds. I didn't eat a bean. I saved every seed. And at the end of the season, I had such a big bundle of these seeds. So this was the impetus for us starting the seed swap. I had to share these seeds with somebody. So we organized the seed swap so I could share these seeds with people. All right, so dig it. I passed out all these seeds. All the seeds were distributed. And the next year we had the seed swap. People came back and said, I did just what you said. I saved those seeds. I saved my seeds, shared them with my friends. So if 12 people save their seeds and share them with their friends, and those 12 people each share their seeds with 12 more people, 144 people. And then 144 people shared their seeds with 12 more people. The listeners at home can do the math. That's a very large number in just a couple of seasons. Like a handful of beans becomes hundreds of beans. A handful of seed savers becomes hundreds of seed savers in just a couple generations' time. So every time we save and share our seeds, just among friends, I mean, it's that significant.
Yeah. I think that's so great. You have written several books, and your most recent book covers a topic that I know really nothing about, which makes me really even that much more curious about it. It makes me really look forward to getting a copy when it comes out. It's the book is The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils, which is coming out in the spring, available for pre-order now from bookstores. In terms of the homesteading, farming, gardening world, I feel like this is so outside of most people's way of thinking. Like, I should grow this thing and make an oil out of it. How did the idea for this book come about? How did you get started doing this?
Well, you know, cold pressing seed and nut oils was literally how we got started here at Small House Farm. It was the very first thing that we did. Sunflower oil in particular was what it was. And it just came to be. I was reading a magazine. I'll tell you the whole story. Ready? So I'm reading a magazine. I'm at home. You know, we'd already quit our jobs. We bought a small house. We moved out here and we're like, now what are we going to do? You know? And I was reading I don't know, organic gardening magazine of some sort. And it was a story in there about a couple that had quit their corporate jobs and bought an old grain mill, like a windmill type of thing. And then they had convinced their local farmers to grow organic grains and bring them to this mill. And they'd started this business, and it was this very successful endeavor. And I thought, oh, that's so inspiring. What an interesting story, these people with this grain mill. But I really didn't have any interest in a grain mill at all. And I thought, well, what about an oil press? You know, when you go to the grocery store and you see these things that we're just so accustomed to buying, sometimes we don't even think about where they come from. You know, we're so detached from our food that we don't know. And a lot of folks are busy educating about, well, where does your broccoli come from? Or where does your meat come from? We talk about that. But then at the grocery, there's an entire aisle of all these various seed and nut oils, right? Where do they come from? So I thought, well, I'm going to try to make some. It was really on a whim because I was curious about it. If I'm going to eat food, I have to understand how it's being processed, right? That's important to me. So I got an old hand-cranked oil press and, you know, some sunflower seeds from the farm down the road and pressed some oil. And I thought, well, this is really nice. And I showed it to a lady that owns an olive oil store in town. And she said, Bevin, this is high quality stuff. You could probably sell this. This is a really nice oil that you made here. So I went home and I pressed myself up all night long, pressing oil, right? And you get like 6 bottles of oil at the end of this, like a whole night's worth of work. I just got a little booth at the local farmer's market. I set up my table and this sort of thing, and I put my oils out and sold out in 10 minutes. It was just like that. Because people were interested in locally produced oil. Everybody's familiar with locally produced vegetables or whatever it might be, but this was something unusual, and I thought, well, maybe we're on something here. And it really organically snowballed out of control. We started pressing various other seeds, squash seeds and flax seeds and some hemp seeds and this and that. And it just took on a life of its own. And it pretty much consumed all of my time and energy and everything that we were doing here. Like I mentioned, we ended up in a commercial kitchen. We were selling oils to co-ops and grocery stores and all these things. It was very successful, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't what I meant to have happen. So we kind of scaled back a little bit to home production once again. And then I realized that when I talked to my fellow gardeners, my homesteaders, my seed savers, whatever it may be, this idea of cold pressing your own oil was something they'd never thought of. Like you said, it was like totally out of left field for folks. But in the kitchen, how often do we use oils?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Almost every meal. It's such a part of what we're doing. As herbalists, I work with a lot of herbalists. I've studied herbs for my entire life. We use a lot of oils when we make our medicines, but we don't necessarily think about how they're being made, let alone making them on our own. But it's actually quite simple to do. So I decided to write a book about it. I've been doing it for 7 years now. I've worked through many of the mistakes. I've made plenty of errors. There's been quite a learning curve. And I just wanted to share all of my experiences with as many people as I can. So when they think of this idea, they have something to learn from. I pretty much had to learn on my own out here making all the mistakes because I couldn't find any reference material. So I really wanted to create this book to share all of those ideas. We talk about equipment with the different styles of presses. I talk about how to turn this, remember my hand crank thing that I was working, how to rig it up to a bicycle to make it bicycle powered, motorized, all these tricks. Yeah, so we can take this chore, turn it into something fun, maybe get a little exercise and some high quality oils for our kitchens and our apothecaries.
That's cool. So you mentioned sunflower as how you got started. Are there other crops that are easy to grow or to forage even for oils?
Oh, sure. We started with sunflower oil, like I mentioned. One of the things that we moved into right after that was squash seed oil, butternut squash. They've bred a number of pumpkins to have hull-less seeds, which are wonderful for oil production, makes a beautiful red oil. Oh my gosh, it's so wonderful, this pumpkin seed oil. But pumpkins are an easy thing to grow, especially where I'm at here in Michigan. I mean, this is like pumpkin growing capital of the world here. It grows very, very easily, just like sunflowers. What's cool about seeds is their exponential nature, right? Plants produce a lot of seeds. That's how they produce the next generation of their life. So you can plant 1 or 2 seeds and you're going to get hundreds of seeds in return. So even to produce enough oil for household use, you don't have to dedicate a large amount of space to it. A moderate amount of space will produce enough seeds for you to have oil to use at home. If you don't have any garden space, you don't feel like gardening, you got brown thumbs, whatever it is, there are certainly things that you could forage as well. Here in Michigan, we do a lot of walnuts, there's shagbark hickories, these sorts of things. There's a lot of nuts that a lot of folks are already gathering. Homesteaders and foragers are already out there getting these nuts out of the woods and bringing them home. And this is just another way that we can use the bounty of that wild harvest in our kitchens and in our apothecaries or for whatever we might want. Nature provides for everything that we need, right? Everything. If we just take the time to learn a little bit about what she's offering.
So let's say I love growing winter squash. That's one of my favorite things to grow. So pumpkins, among them. So let's say I get a little hand cranked oil press and I make some pumpkin seed oil this year. I really like this idea, but hypothetically, let's say I do this. How long will this oil keep for me? I mean, I never think, like you said, we don't think about where things come from. When I buy oil from the grocery store, I don't really think about the process that it went through, like to preserve it. So how long would like fresh pressed pumpkin seed oil hypothetically last in my kitchen?
Sure. So what we're used to, like you said, is the stuff at the grocery store that we don't think about. And a lot of the stuff at the grocery has gone through a process, a number of processes to get to that shelf stable state.
Probably stuff we don't want to know about.
It really is, and I was familiar with a lot of it, but in writing the book, I researched it. I got really deep into some of the processes for these commercial oils, soybean oils and these sorts of things. And it was frightening to see what's happening to our food, things that we consume, put in our bodies. It's crazy, so if for that reason alone, people should be considering producing their own, just so you know what the heck's going on with your food, right? But anyways, so your pumpkin seed oil this isn't hypothetical. You're really going to do it, Lisa. You're going to grow some pumpkins. You're going to press some oil. You're going to read my book. It's going to be awesome stuff,
okay,
right?
I like it. And I'm on board.
You're going to press this pumpkin seed oil. It's going to be beautiful. You're going to be wowed by it. But it's only going to keep for about 6 months or so. You know what I mean? Before it goes rancid. It does not have a long shelf life. You can increase the shelf life, of course, through refrigeration. If that's an option that you have at your home. If you want to refrigerate things, you certainly can. The oil is going to last notably longer, a year plus, if you keep it refrigerated as opposed to just on your counter. You know what I mean? This is going to vary from oil to oil. The different fat contents and that sort of thing determines the shelf life. And we get into all that in the book. Every oil has so much information about specific storage requirements and temperatures and all these sorts of things, just so you can get maximum efficiency with what you're doing. But let's say about 6 months. The beauty of it, though, is if you leave the oil in the seeds and only press a small amount to use, the other seeds are going to be perfectly fine, right? So instead of pressing all your oil and having to store all this oil, just press what you need. Press enough for a month or two. Press it out. When that's gone, get out your seeds from storage. Just keep them in 5-gallon buckets, close up 5-gallon buckets, press out some more oil. When you make your own oil, it's as fresh as you want it to be. Pressed fresh every time that you use it. When we sold oils commercially, that was one of the kickers about what we did, is our oil was the freshest around. It was literally fresh. If you bought it at the farmer's market, I pressed it that week. It was the freshest oil you were going to get. You go to the grocery store and buy oil, it's generous of me to say that it's 6 months old. You've got to think about the storage and warehousing and travel and all these things that these oils have to go through. We don't need any of that. We could press it right at home, have the freshest, most delicious, most nutritious oil available right at your fingertips.
Well, I do really, really love this idea, actually. So time to start my next birthday list.
Perfect.
What are your plans coming up for the coming season at Small House Farm? I mean, it is winter when you and I are having this conversation. Do you have anything that you're excited about for this year?
I get excited about everything. So work-wise, the Complete Guide to Seed Nut Oils is going to come out this spring. So I've already got a number of dates booked. We're going to do a little tour to get out there and promote the book and that sort of thing. So I'm going to be on the road quite a bit. I'm going to be at the Mother Earth News Fair and that sort of thing, out there chatting with folks, teaching people about things, hopefully pressing some oil. And selling some books. So I'm really excited to get out there and share this book with the world. It's been so much work and time and effort here in the office working on this thing. I just cannot wait to get it out into the public. That's going to be so much fun. But I'm also really excited about the gardens. Wintertime is the best time for planting, and we are actively planting our gardens right now. And I think I can already sense my obsession building for what's going to happen next year. Last year was ending. I was really getting into greens, collard greens and kale and that sort of thing. They do well here in Michigan because you can keep them through a majority of the winter, a lot of those greens, and still eat them and enjoy them. Brush the snow off the kale, harvest it and have it, But I was just flipping through one of my favorite seed catalogs, and they have quite a bit of new Asian greens that they have for sale. All sorts of different stuff, dark green, beautiful looking things. And I'm just so excited to grow some of those this year. I'm getting excited just talking about it right now. Probably after this interview, I'm going to start ordering my seeds, which is funny for me because I have more seeds than any person will ever need. There's an entire room at home, a small house here at the homestead that's with seed storage, buckets and barrels of seeds everywhere. So the last thing I suppose I need is more seeds, but I got to get these seeds. Lisa. I got to grow these things, there's no way around it. So there's so much on the horizon to be excited about. Every time I get to plant a seed in the soil and watch it grow into something beautiful, that's a celebration in and of itself,
It is too. I agree. Well, how can listeners learn more and keep up with you and your work at Small House Farm and your books and your workshops and whatnot?
There's lots of ways to stay connected with what we're doing here. There's the Instagram and Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel and all these sorts of cool things. People are into that. But the hub to find all those things, links to any way you want to connect with me, is through our website, of course, which is smallhousefarm.com. It's kind of a one-stop shop for everything Small House. You can connect to our social medias. You can look at our herbal wellness products. You can see all of our seed selection. We have a great selection of seeds available for folks to purchase for their gardens next year. You can see the books. You can see all sorts of stuff. Everything that's happening at Small House Farm somehow funnels through that website. My wife runs it. It's very, very beautiful. So I highly recommend smallhousefarm.com. Of course, the books are available everywhere books are sold. If you like to buy books online, I recommend Bookshop is a wonderful thing. It supports a lot of small, independent bookstores and that sort of thing. And that's really, really neat. But of course, you can buy the books right through our website as well. And when you buy them through smallhousefarm.com, I'll even autograph them and send them your way. We're running a really cool special on the new book. We were lucky to work with an artist. Lisa Munniksma was her name. And she did these incredible botanical illustrations of all of the plants that we talk about in the book. Sunflowers, okra, pumpkins, hemp, all these things. Gorgeous illustrations. And so we've got them in 8x10 prints and in thank you cards and all that sort of thing. And right now, if you pre-order a copy of The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils, it even comes with an 8x10 print of your choice. So that's a pretty groovy thing.
That is very nice. I should also say that folks can find your work on hobbyfarms.com and in Hobby Farms magazine. So we can keep up with and learn more about all of the things you have going on there. Bevin, thank you so much for your time today. This has all been really interesting.
Lisa, it has been a pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show.